evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, great scholars and great leaders. Thank you so much for joining us once again tonight. We are discussing courageous leadership, and I'll be introducing our speaker shortly. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Mazwema Jola. I'm from the Worldwide Institute of Leadership and Development. We do this every Wednesdays as we meet and engage with leaders from all walks of life, and we come together to learn, to unlearn, to relearn, and to co-learn, because leadership is a journey. Leadership is not a destination. So great leaders will always learn, or great leaders should learn all the time until we go to the grave. I always say that if you are a lazy person, stay away from leadership, because leadership is not for people who are lazy. You've got to constantly develop yourself. So that is why we created this community of leaders where we meet. As long as you're a leader, or as long as you're a leader, you belong here. We meet here every Wednesdays, and I would like to welcome our regulars and our members. You know that, as I always say, you know that we learn a lot from each other every Wednesdays. We've got great scholars here from different universities with all sorts of expertise. We've got great leaders from public sector, from private sector. I've got politicians, members of the media. I've set up at academics. We've got religious leaders, community leaders, professionals, managers. So yes, as long as you're a leader, you belong here. Thank you so much. And a special welcome to those colleagues who are joining us for the first time. If you are here for the first time, thank you. And we are so welcome. Please do participate. This is a safe space. It's a community of leaders. As long as you're a leader, you're most welcome. We engage each other as a conversation. We engage with respect, and would like to learn from you as well. So thank you so much for taking time to join us, and we hope it won't be the last time, as I've said, that we meet every Wednesdays. This is a bumper Wednesday masterclasses where we just sit and let, as we always say, peers empowering other peers, peers speaking to other peers, empowering other peers, inspiring, encouraging, correcting, admonishing as other peers as leaders, because we just need to fix leadership. As you always say, if you can fix leadership, we will definitely improve many things in our lives, in our communities, in our families, in our business, in our government, in our nations, countries, everywhere. Everything comes down to leadership. Tonight we are addressed by one of the greatest women of the soil, and I'm so happy that we managed to get her. She's a very busy person, but so humbled and so actually impressed with her humility that she was able to accept our invitation, and we are so glad that I call her Dr. Tryphosa. She's very humble. She said to me, when I printed the first flyer, I put a DR there, tackle and set, and she said, Prof, I suggest that you remove the DR. She explained all sorts of things that I didn't want to argue with her because I know that she's a doctor, and obviously that's how she is. So don't shoot me if you see, or when you saw that the posters didn't have a DR. We had it, but because, as I'm saying, that because of her humility, that is what we'll be learning a lot tonight. She preferred that just Tryphosa, and that is where she is today. I'll just read her brief bio, and she will address us. For the sake of those who are joining us for the first time, we'll allow the speaker to address us, and then after that, we'll engage her with questions and answers as we engage each other as well. I said it's a community of leaders, so we always converse. Dr. Tryphosa Ramana is a distinguished business leader with deep expertise in governance, finance, and strategy, and a proven track record of delivering impact across both public and private sectors. With a career spanning financial services, mining, manufacturing, aviation, and government, she brings a rare combination of technical excellence, strategic foresight, and purpose-driven leadership. She holds a Bachelor of Commerce degree and a postgraduate diploma in accounting from the University of Cape Town, and is also an honorary doctorate recipient from the University of Johannesburg in recognition of her contribution to business leadership and societal impact. Tryphosa has held several high-impact executive roles, including Chief Financial Officer of PPC Ltd from 2011 to 2019. Prior to PPC, she served as Chief Financial Officer of Wiphold and South African Airways, and held senior roles within National Treasury South Africa, contributing to key fiscal and economic initiatives. She has an extensive board portfolio, having served and continuing to serve on several leading institutions, including the South African Reserve Bank, Industrial Development Corporation of South Africa, and the Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Fund, as well as the AU Peace Fund, among others. Her governance expertise is widely recognized, with prior directorships spanning organizations as PIC, ESCOM, NTC, SA, AXA, Sasria, Land Bank, DBSA, ADCOC, or the ADCOP, the Solidarity Fund, the Board of Auditors at the African Union, PPC subsidiaries, and SA Express. Beyond her corporate achievements, Tryphosa is a passionate gender activist and advocate for youth empowerment. She is the co-founder and chairperson of A Seat at the Table, a platform dedicated to creating access, opportunity, and leadership pathways for young people and women across the globe. She has also held prominent leadership positions within influential industry bodies, including serving as chairperson of the Black Business Council and APSIP, African Women Chartered Accountants, and the Young Leaders Connect. She continues to be a formidable force in shaping inclusive economic growth, strengthening governance standards, and advancing meaningful transformation across industries and communities. That is Dr. Tryphosa Ramana, ladies and gentlemen. Just before you speak, my doc, one of my sister and one of our member here sent me this piece that you wrote yeah, I think it's where did you write this? I'm sure you will recognize this when I read it. And then she said, "Wow, thank you so much for bringing this powerful women." I think it was on LinkedIn. Yes, that is my sister Nomviso Pachi, and then she sent me this. So this is what you wrote, one of your pieces on LinkedIn. Nobody is coming to save your career. The sooner you accept that, the faster you'll rise. This is the hardest truth in professional life. Your boss is not your sponsor. Your company is not your family. Your degree is not your destiny. You are your greatest investment. I've seen brilliant people wait for permission that never came. I've seen average people claim opportunities the brilliant ones were waiting to be given. The difference? Ownership. Own your growth, own your narrative, own your seat. Don't wait to be invited. Invite yourself. Don't wait to be ready. Get ready by doing. Don't wait for credit. Build a track record. The table exists. Your name just is not on the chair yet. Put it there yourself. Wow, wow, wow. What a piece. What a piece. When I read this, I said, wow, thank you so much, Tumvuyi, for sharing this with me. Wow, thank you so much, my sister. I hope these are some of the principles we'll be sharing with us tonight. We are so ready. We are so longing to hear from you. We respect you a lot. We admire you a lot. And thank you for availing yourself. You can address us now. Courageous leadership. Over to you, my sister. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Majola. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished academics, executives, and leaders in the making. I really appreciate to be invited at this session. So to speak here is also on the subject of courageous leadership. It feels like homecoming and a challenge on its own as well. And so I've decided to invite Dr. Musi, who is the one who nominated me for the doctorate at the University of Johannesburg. And just to share the journey that when she started, she contacted me. I was shooing her away all the time. Don't have time, I'm busy. And she was very relentless and very passionate. And I really appreciate that, Dr. Musi, for that. So I have carried the thought of that courage is not the absence of fear. It is deciding that something else matters more. For my entire career in boardrooms and in the boardrooms and the courtrooms of governance, in investment committees, in audit chambers, audit committees, in the long quiet nights before a hard decision. That has been my compass of courage. And today I want to unpack that, what courageous leadership actually looks like in practice, and not the celebrated speech version, the real version, the one that really costs. And we have seen it, many people with courage, what it has cost them in real life. As I said a few weeks ago, University of Johannesburg conferred me an honorary doctorate in philosophy. Standing on that stage robed in that crimson gown, I loved it, which I dedicated it to my grandmother, who could not read or write, and my mother, who was 16 years old when she had me. I thought of that little girl coming from the dusty township of Mamelodi, growing up watching her grandmother rise before the sun, the little girl who watched her uncle, you can see I'm referring uncle, navigate a system designed to diminish him and watch him refuse for that. That little girl who sat in classrooms where the curriculum said nothing about people who looked like her, and decided to write herself into the story anyway. That little girl is the reason I stand before you today. And she is the reason I believe, with every cell in my body, the courageous leadership is not a luxury reserved for the powerful. It is a moral obligation for everyone who has been given a seat at the table. I want to spend our time today, this evening, exploring 3 dimensions of courageous leadership. First is the courage to see clearly, to name what is true, even when silence will be more comfortable. Second, the courage to act, to move from analysis to decisions when the stakes are high and the road is uncertain. And thirdly, the courage to stay human, to lead with Ubuntu at the center, even when the systems we operate in reward everything but Ubuntu. I will draw on the history, on the continent, and on my own boardroom battles and personal failures, because I think the greatest disservice we do to the next generation of leaders is to present leadership at the highlight reel. It is not a contact sport, and the bruises are real. So firstly, with the courage to see clearly, as I said, I'm looking at it in 3 dimensions. One of the first casualties in institutions under pressure is honest speech. I have sat in boardrooms, beautiful rooms with polished tables and expensive coffee, where the data told one story and the narrative in the room told another, where everyone around the table saw the same problem and no one would name it. Not because they lacked intelligence, because they lacked the safety or the courage to speak. We have a word for this governance. We call it groupthink. But I prefer the African grandmother's word for it. Ukuthula okungalungile. A silence that is not peace. A quiet that is rotting from the inside. If you remember years ago, there was a case study about Enron in 2001. If you remember that story that redefined what governance should be like now in the global world, Enron was the 7th largest company in America. Its executives were celebrated, its stock was soaring, and its boardroom was full of brilliant people. But Sharon Watkins, by then a vice president of corporate development, wrote a now famous memo to the CEO then, Kenneth Lay, warning that the company's accounting practice were fraudulent and that it could implode in a wave of scandal. She sent the memo. She risked everything. The executive responded by exploring how to terminate her employment. These are the stories we hear every day. Whistleblowers. When you tell the truth, they think of the way they could terminate you. Fast forward, Enron collapsed. Thousands of employees lost their pension overnight. Watkins was later named one of Time magazine's Person of the Year. But here is what I want you to hold on. She did not write that memo because she was fearless. She wrote it because she decided integrity mattered more than her career. That is the anatomy of courageous leadership. It does not feel heroic in the moment. It feels terrifying. You write that memo anyway. We have our own Sheraton Watkins moments in this continent, in this country. I, for instance, have experienced it myself, whereby as a CFO, you refuse to endorse what is not correct. And I faced a situation exactly like Sharon Watkins, whereby They were thinking of how we can terminate her employment. Unfortunately, I fought my way, and eventually the very same people that were looking to terminate me, they ended up terminating themselves. And the rest is history. We remember also the story of advocate Thuli Madonsela, the power of a single, uncompromised voice. Between 2009 and 2016, South Africa's public protector produced reports on Nkandla, on Estina, on the arms, on everything that no one in power wanted her to produce. She operated with a staff that was underfunded and under threat. She was offered through intermediaries reasons to look anyway. She did not look away. She produced what we termed the State of Capture report in her last days in office, a document that eventually seeded the most consequential judicial inquiry in post-apartheid South Africa. Institutions do not have integrity. People do. And one person with integrity, positioned correctly, can bend the arc of history. As I said, I've experienced this. I once sat in committees, in investments, whereby I had to look at transactions where I was not comfortable, where we could see the financial modeling were elegant, the presentations were polished, but something in the assumptions did not hold. I raised it. The room went quiet in a particular way, the kind of quiet that tells you that you have just made someone powerful and comfortable. I was asked gently but firmly whether I was sure I had read the numbers correctly. I said so again. The transaction did not go through. It was not comfortable. It was necessary. And I learned something that day. Your credibility as a director is not built in the moments when you agree. It is built in moments when you do not. And you can show your workings. As long as you can sleep nicely and be able to dream. Seeing clearly also means knowing when not to act. Some of the most consequential decisions I have observed in boardrooms, in the senior exec rooms, were not the bold moves. They were the refusals. The refusal to approve a transaction that did not pass the smell test. The smell test, meaning the unwritten words, the things that you can smell but you can't see. The refusal to rubber stamp an executive recommendation without adequate interrogation. The refusal to let agency become the enemy of diligence. Restrained exercise with principles is also an act of courage. On the concept of Ubuntu, as I said, there were 3 principles I wanted to talk about. There's a saying that umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu. A person is a person through other people. The courage to act. Diagnosis without decision is an intellectual luxury. And in leadership, intellectual luxury has victims. There are people waiting for development finance, the community waiting for the water board to function, the employees waiting for a strategic decision that keeps the factory open. Courageous leadership is not just about speaking the truth. It's also about moving. Even when the information is incomplete, even when the opposition is loud, even when the outcome is uncertain. Nelson Mandela said that he was not a saint unless you define a saint as a sinner who keeps trying. So I want to add something to that. He was also not a strategist who waited for perfect conditions. The negotiation transition of 1990 to 1994 was an act of extraordinary strategic courage under impossible conditions. The easy path was rage. The courageous path was reconstruction. Just to share also the case study of Unilever, Paul Polman at Unilever, when he was talking about redefining what the corporate owes the world. We talk about ESG now. It's like a phrase, environment, social, and governance in corporate, as part of corporate governance. In 2009, Paul Polman became CEO of Unilever, and within weeks announced that the company will no longer provide quarterly earnings guidance. He told analysts essentially that Unilever would be managed for the long term, for sustainability, for social impact, for systematic health, not for the quarterly cycle. Institutional investors were furious. I was once an analyst. I know if you don't produce quarterly earnings or half yearly information, you become furious. You decide that there is no transparency, and then you want to dump the stock. The stock fell, but he continued, he held the line. Under his decade-long stewardship, Unilever's sustainable brand grew at twice the rate of the rest of the portfolio. The lesson is not about strategy. It's about the courage to redefine the question. Courageous leaders change the question, and changing the question changes everything. As a personal reflection, I founded a seat at the table, which we call it SAT, because I sat in too many boardrooms and too many boardroom development programs that were technically excellent and humanly hollow. They taught governance frameworks, but not the courage to use them. They taught strategy, but not the Ubuntu that should animate it. People told me it was a crowded space, that a new NPC in a board development will struggle to find its footing. Yes, I am a chartered accountant by qualification. I do not make decisions on sentiment. I make them on conviction, backed by evidence. The evidence was clear. The leadership pipeline into governance, especially for young people, especially for women, especially from those who come from outside the traditional corridors of power, was broken. Someone had to fix it. I decided that someone was me. And that is not arrogance. That is what conviction looks like when it is married to accountability. And I'm glad that now, since launching that program, more than 500 young people, young emerging leaders, those wanting to strengthen their governance, have passed through the program in terms of that leadership. Some have been placed into boards, some have been placed into leadership positions, because now they know what it means, the governance framework with the Ubuntu lens. Acting courageously in leadership also means when not to act. Some of those consequential decisions I have observed in boardrooms were not the bold moves. There were the refusals. As you can hear, I'm repeating it again. Restraint, exercise in principle, is also an act of courage. The third one is the courage to stay human. Here is the thing nobody tells you about reaching the top table. We call it the penthouse. When you go to the penthouse, to the top floor, the air is thin up there. There's a saying the scientist says, the higher you go, the colder it becomes. The air is thin up there. It is thin because the systems we have built, corporate systems, governance systems, even academic systems, have been optimized over centuries to reward a particular kind of a leader. The one who is decisive, but not vulnerable. The one who is analytical, but not emotional. The one who is authoritative, but not empathetic. A kind of a leader that, I will say plainly, was modeled on a very specific human archetype that most of us in this room were never intended to be. Ubuntu philosophy teaches us something that centuries of Western management theory forgot. You cannot lead people well if you have severed yourself from your shared humanity with them. That is why even in the continent, and especially even in this country, within other industries, you cannot operate and run a mine when you ignore the community. The community is very important, part and parcel of the fabric of the mining industry. And with that, you have to integrate them into your processes. And that is why we have social labor plan in terms of the mining laws in this country, so that we can integrate. It had to be legislated purely because of we forgot what the issues of Ubuntu is. But the most important thing is that ESG has been put as part and parcel of a framework that organizations look at, and also for investors when they're looking to invest in a company, they're also looking what are the ESG principles, what are your ESG frameworks. Even JSE has got like ESG framework that for companies that want to raise sustainability bond, if you want to be in just energy transition, etc., to actually incorporate it in. It is driven by the Ubuntu philosophy. There's a Zulu saying in that Ubuntu, umuntu muntu ngabantu. And ladies and gentlemen, it is not a slogan. It is a governance framework. Ubuntu and ESG are similar. It's just that in a boardroom, it is phrased differently in a language that investors could understand. It tells us that your identity as a leader is relational. Is relational. It is constituted by the quality of your relationships, the integrity of your community obligations, and the health of the ecosystem in which you inhabit. We all know the story of Wangari Maathai. When dignity becomes a policy, who is a founder of Green Belt Movement, Nobel Peace Prize. He won the Nobel Peace Prize of 2004. When Wangari Maathai founded the Green Belt Movement in Kenya in 1977, a movement that was on the surface about planting trees, but it was at its heart about something far more radical: the dignity of rural Kenyan women, democratic rights of communities to their own land and resources, and the refusal to accept that development meant the destruction of ecological system that communities depend on for survival. She experienced harsh treatment, but she planted more trees. And she won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2004, the first African to do so. That's what my research tells me. She stayed human because she stayed connected to the soil, to the women, to the living system that her work was in service. That is Ubuntu in action. As a personal reflection, I always tell people that I used to dance. I used to be a ballroom dancer in my days as a teenager. And in ballroom dancing, it taught me a lot of things. And people sometimes find that that's surprising. A CA, a board director, an investment advisor who dances. I still dance today. But I think it's the most honest metaphor for the leadership that I have and that I have learned as well. In ballroom, you must be technically precise and emotionally present simultaneously. You must hold your frame, your structure, while remaining completely alive to your partner, to the music, to the space. You cannot be stiff and be beautiful. You cannot be dissolved and lead. The tension between structure and surrender, that is leadership. That is Ubuntu. The discipline of the form in service of something alive and connected. So, ladies and gentlemen, staying human also means staying curious. It means sitting with discomfort when you encounter a perspective that challenges yours, especially a perspective from someone younger, someone less institutionally powerful, someone the system has told you has less standing. Some of the most important things I have learned in my careers have come from the younger people who are the mentees, not my mentors. From the analysts who asked the question nobody else would. From the young woman in the back row who raised her hand and said, but have we considered the communities who will actually live with this decision? Those are very important. I remember in one of the organizations, when we, obviously is one of the biggest utilities in this country, when we're talking about the just energy transition and moving and shutting some of the stations, and the questions was asked, remember visiting some of the power stations, some of the employees say, what will happen to us? Nobody has told us what's going to happen when this power station is shut down. I live across the road, not far from the power station, but I don't know what it is that we are going to do, because throughout my life, my family worked here, I'm working here. This is my life and my community in there. Just from there, made one to realize that in the boardroom, you can make a decision on a piece of paper. But when you start engaging with the communities, it can make a huge difference. Just a statement made all of us to go back and say, what are we really doing? Where is the social impact study for the communities? There's one station that has been shut down. We didn't do it well. It is still sitting there. And the community says they don't want to do aqua fish or aqua something. They want to be reskilled into something else. And then we had to relook at that process. And hence, we looked at the energy security for the country and made a decision in that boardroom that we are going to extend the life of some of the plants while we are working on reskilling strategy. But if we didn't do that, we're going to continue with the decision that was made to say for just energy transition, we are just moving and shutting down the power station. We said it's called just energy transition. It is a transition. You have to work with the communities while you aspire to get to where you want to aspire. And the issue was, how much will it cost? It was the courage to act by that board. It was the courage to challenge the previous decisions that were made. It was the courage to be able to say, we stand by this because it's the most important thing you can do for the country. When the numbers came in, I was sitting in that boardroom, chairing the Finance Investment Committee, looking at the big numbers and having to agree and challenge management to say, we will support you. We will take it to the board. We will take it to the shareholders. We will take it to all the relevant players. We will be challenged, but it is a challenge we are prepared to take for the best interest of this country, for the best interest of everybody else. So courageous leaders build cultures where those questions are not just tolerated. They are sought. They are rewarded. They are treated as the most important questions in the room. A call to courageous action before I conclude. I want to close with this. We are living through a period of extraordinary disruption. We've got technological disruption, we've got climatic disruption, geopolitical disruption, moral disruption, and you can name all the disruptions that we have. Artificial intelligence is reshaping the labor market faster than our educational institutions can adapt. The climate crisis is unfolding with a cruelty that falls disproportionately on the poorest communities on this continent. Democratic institutions that took generations to build are under sustained pressure from actors who mistake authority for accountability. In this environment, there will be enormous pressure on all of us. In your boardrooms, in your faculties, in your executive committees, in investment committees, I get pressure all the time because I chair investment committees. You will go under pressure to manage the risk, to preserve consensus, to avoid the controversy that comes with taking a position. There will be moments where the courageous thing and the comfortable thing are not the same thing. They really are. So, ladies and gentlemen, be the director who asks the hard questions. Be the executive who tells the board what it does not want to hear. Be that academic who publish the findings that disrupts the comfortable consensus. Be the leader who walks in a room full of power and says, with grace and with evidence and with Ubuntu at your back, we can do better than this. You are those people. This Africa needs you to to be those people. As I said, I received an honorary doctorate a few weeks ago. I say I enjoyed. They call me Doc. Thank you very much. Be the honor I care most about. But the honor I care most about, the one I want to have earned by the end of my life, is a simpler one. I want someone to say that when it mattered, when the stakes were high and the easy path was well lit and the courageous path was uncertain, I chose the truth. I chose the people. I chose Ubuntu. I hope you will make the same choice. Go well, lead bravely, and remember, the table is only worth sitting at it if you bring your whole self to it. That is authenticity. Ngiyabonga. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Doc. Sure, yeah. It feels like we usually could just listen and listen and listen. You know, as leaders and as scholars, we really need this talk because we live in a time where people have lost that boldness and that courage. And it seems like people would prefer uh, to shy away from certain things in terms of being decisiveness. So that is why we are here tonight as leaders to hear this, that really it takes a courage person with integrity to move things, to change culture, to, you cannot just sit on that table, on that boardroom, and then you just, yes, boss, yes, oh, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, yes, whoever. Yes, you've got to do that with integrity, with respect. Thank you so much, my sister. Thanks. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are now in a time where we can ask um, uh, some questions, and I'll ask you to be as brief as possible so that we can accommodate as many as possible. Or obviously, we cannot accommodate everyone. We are in an online governed by time, so we are time constrained. So you can do that by raising your hand, and then we can just ask some question to Dr. Tryphosa for this powerful and insightful um, address. Let me just start straight away with some chat room there. Uh, uh, Dr. Keith. Oh, Keith, I'm calling you a doctor already. Keith is doing his PhD, so so you've got to finish your PhD, Keith. You can hear that I'm calling you doc already. Keith says, "Wow, welcome again, Dr. Tryphosa. I also want to welcome Tuli Mpuche to our weekly platform. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, sir. You cannot lead people well if you have severed yourself from humanity. Professor Mdluli takeaway package courage in making decisions driven by conviction, supported by evidence, and so much that she has shared with us. Colleague there using Samsung. Congratulations once more on your doctorate. Thandeka Amen powerful Tolelwa Zulu. Try to us. And Dr. Linda Peter, congratulations, Doc, and thank you for an insightful presentation. Dufuno, Doc, ma'am, try is amazing, and every time I listen to her, I learn something new. Governance framework through Ubuntu, Lunati, that boardroom analogy. In boardroom, you must be technical, precise, and at the same time be emotional, available, and absolutely so true. Some of us who are ballroom dancing or ballroom dancers. By the way, I was also a professional ballroom and Latin dancer. So when you use that analogy, I know exactly what it means to hold a partner and what it means to do those those things. Beautiful, beautiful,
The
beautiful.
walls and the quick step.
The waltz and the tangos and the paso dobles and all those.
That's what
I used to teach that in my time. So unfortunately, always when you say that, people say, "What can you teach us again?" No, I mean we are old now, but obviously, as Doc is saying, it's a beautiful thing because with that leadership analogy, so perfect. You can't drop your partner. You really you need each other. You know, the other one pushes the other one, the other one falls, another one. So it's you just that's what leadership is all about. You rely on your team, and then your team relies on you. You cannot do it alone. Otherwise, you cannot dance alone. Thank you so much for that analogy. If I can just ask Doc while the colleagues are still coming, there is this perception that to be courageous, you've got to be, I don't know, should I use the word rude uh, uh, and obnoxious, that you must, it's like you must show people that you are the person. How do you manage courage? And again, you did say this already with respect. You know, you're respecting people, you are leading, but you are courageous. We are not weak, we are not obnoxious as well. We are assertive, but while we are doing that, you know that this, and I like the Ubuntu again philosophy that these are human beings. You've got to respect them, but at the same time, you've got to be decisive and make sure that they carry their duties. I think maybe as leaders, because of the culture that we're coming from, we tend to think that just because there was a certain, boss that you reported to that used to do things like this, and then also you tend to, imitate him or her. That you've got to drive people like slaves. You just must be courage. Come on, go there. You must be bold. When we are telling these people, don't be shy. Any thoughts there, Doc?
Thank you for that. I think you're correct. Most of the time, they say sometimes they associate courage with being like hard. Um, and that is why I was talking about how institutions were built. They didn't have Ubuntu in its fabric. And the thing about it is that we tend to imitate our bosses, as you say, and everybody learn from the other, and you become much harder. And women, especially, we experience it a lot. When you are courageous, when you are saying it in a manner that saying, I will not approve this, I do not support this, we get labeled as being hard, aggressive, not a people's person, etc. It's purely because of people don't expect you to stand for yourself. But as I said, for courage, I broke it down into three: the courage to act, the courage as a clarity, and the Ubuntu lens. For example, when I gave an example of the largest utility on the courage to act, that when one was on that board, the issue that was we found there when we were in like load shedding after load shedding, and the strategy to shut down power stations. And the courageous question we ask is that why are we just closing? Yes, it is a strategy. Yes, it is the country. We took a decision that we're going to do just energy transition. It is the right thing to do, but do it responsibly. And then as a board at the time, we had to go to stations, power stations. And most boss normally don't go to power stations. And we sat with those power station managers. We sat with the individuals who worked into those power stations, who were saying, we hear we are closing, but we don't have a plan. What is a plan? And it was heartwarming because it was not the management that was asking the question. It was ordinary men and women that are working in the power station. That is their livelihood. To say I was born and bred here in Mpumalanga. My parents worked here. My grandparents worked here. That's all that we know. But we don't have a plan. And we didn't know what the plan was. And when we went back, we sat in a room and say, where is a social plan of reskilling, social plan of reskilling, of doing this and trying to bring the communities, the coal mines, what are we going to do with those coal mines? And those were the hard questions. And then eventually the penny dropped that as much as we were wanting to do this just energy transition, the speed in which we were doing it, it was too fast. And then we didn't incorporate everything into account. And then it cost money. We asked management to go and do the numbers. They came back with the numbers. We challenged them. They were big numbers. But eventually, in understanding, I always say you need to understand the spreadsheet and the street. So those numbers, behind those numbers, there are human beings in those numbers. There are families behind those numbers. Then we eventually said, this can be supported. We went to the board and we said to the board, this is going to cost, but it is a necessary cost. Let's do this in a much more responsible manner. And then the challenge was to sell it to the stakeholders, going to be challenged by all manner of stakeholders. We said, we are ready to be challenged. We've got the numbers to back this. We've got the research to back this, that this cost is worth it because the country is suffering. And we can be able to do that in a responsible manner. That was the courage to go and sell the story, that knowing that you may be challenged. And we were all behind it. The numbers were there, and then we supported it. And the rest is history. Now we have a utility that is operating, that those stations, the lives have been extended so that we can transition in a much more responsible manner. So that is the courage to act, and the courage that has got humility in it to say, let us reflect. Don't be afraid to reverse a decision that has been made that has unintended consequences. That is the courage. Most people don't do it. And that's not necessarily that you have to be aggressive, but we did it in a much more humanely because of that young person who raised their hand and say, what's going to happen to me? When this closes, they say it's going to close in 2 years' time. What's going to happen to me? And that made us to look at everything. And today, it's a different story.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Doc. Thank you so much. We are really learning a lot. We are enjoying the, 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 the speech, the address. It seems like colleagues are preferring the let's just see the chat room. So I think I was with Did I take 2 years? I think so. Uh, I, I don't think I took, I don't know. Let me repeat if I did take 2 years. So never underestimate the value found in learning from those who have gone ahead of us. Thank you, Dr. Try, for your inspirational and practical leadership, for sending the lift back for us. And Dr. Kumamangisa, how pervasive it is that the turnaround in SOEs is done without a social plan, following the adage, the business of business is business. Mandla Mkwanazi, wow, what an excellent presentation, my sister. First time listening to you, and I'm truly inspired. Your humility as well as your authenticity are quite amazing, despite your achievements, which in the public domain of all see humility and authenticity. You are a credible role model, and we are so proud of you, Mutate. Thank you for your responsible and diligent leadership, Dr. Mamtrai. We thank you for you and the board's courage to save one of our most critical SOEs. Lukolo, thank you, Dr. Try. This evening's presentation has reminded one that the human element plays a vital role in how we approach leadership. Thank you so much, colleagues. And I see a hand in there from Lidi. Is it Chari or Kari? Lidi, over to you.
Good evening. Thank you so much, Prof. I just wanted to say a quick thank you to Dr. Try. Congratulations. I'm an entrepreneur building here in Africa. We never have a seat at the table, but these are the issues that we need to build with in mind. So I just wanted to say thank you so much. Our businesses could be the future multi-billion dollar businesses, but we need to be mindful of such conversations. We never have a seat. Now we do. Thank you so much. We are learning, learning, learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Lady. Thank you so much. And anything there, Dr. Try? Now I'm calling you Dr. Try. I've heard that people are calling Mom Try. So Dr. Try, anything that to Lady that indeed most of the time growing up, we never had a seat or the table. So now at least you've started something like this that has assisted people in terms of you've got to take your seat. The table's there. It's just the ownership, as you said in that article. It's up to you how you take that seat, how you own up that seat that is there. Any response there?
Thank you, Prof. I always say if they don't invite yourself, bring your own chair. And if maybe the table is full, build your own table and extend the table. Let's make the circle bigger and bigger. And it's interesting when you bring the young people into the tables so that they can learn, they can watch leadership, and they can adopt what they want to adopt. But it's amazing, like now in the world of artificial intelligence that we are talking about, Internet of Things, the social media. If you do not have a young person in a boardroom that can explain to you how it works, none of us will understand it. Yesterday, we were looking at the AI, the draft AI policy that has been issued, gazetted and issued on the 10th of April with a closing date of the 10th of June. And we were looking at it with the young people that are really understanding what actually it is required. And this artificial intelligence, if you do not adopt it, we're going to be left behind. China was nowhere a few years ago. Today, 9 out of the 10 artificial intelligence and data engineering, data scientists in the world are from China. We're talking about the Magnificent Seven, which is your Apple, your Google, and etc. that are listed there in the developed countries. They call it Magnificent Seven. When you look into the stock market, they are so large. Now we are talking about the Terrific 10. They call it Terrific 10 in the market. The Terrific 10 are all from China. Small, growing very fast. So if we do not adopt AI and move faster, we won't be able to catch up. We're going to be left behind. So that is why we have a seat at the table to say, let's occupy those seats at the table. Let's comment on this draft legislation of draft policy. And we partnered with One Young World, whereby it's represented in 170, more than 190 countries, and it's young people around the world. This year they're coming to Cape Town. A seat at the table is having a platform there. It's going to have its own representatives who will become ambassadors in there. We're very excited about this, that we are becoming a movement for change, movement for prosperity, for the future, for our young people, because of we cannot sit and watch, but we want to be able to be counted amongst the statistics of success in the world. So, in my closing to leave you with is that courageous leadership has to happen with clarity, courage to act, and with Ubuntu lens. When we sit into those boardrooms, let's not forget ourselves, where we come from. Let us understand that the impact that we are making has got bigger ramification. It may be a small decision of approving that loan of a small business that will serve families. You don't know the impact that it has. So it's important to be conscious in where we come from, conscious about our surroundings, conscious about our communities, conscious about everything, and also lift as you rise. And let's plow back. The thing that I really preach at the seat at the table is don't forget your community. Go back to your community and share what you have learned. Go back to your community and show that young person in the village, in the township, that it is possible. And let's all pour and invest in those communities, because somebody invested in me, somebody showed me the rope, and somebody believed that I would be something tomorrow. And today you call me Doc, and I'm happy for that. I'll enjoy it while it lasts. Thank you.
Thanks, Doc. If you don't mind, if we can just ask for your indulgence. I see Dr. Truma Mangisa there. If we can just take him, and then you can just be the last one. You'll be the last one, and then you can respond to him. And then you can give us any parting shots if you have. I'm sure you have already. I'll ask my professor there, Professor Mdluli, to thank the speaker. After you, then we close the session. Dr. Mangisa, over to you, my brother.
No, thanks, Prof. Majola, and congratulations to Doc Tryphosa for the award, that we have just received. The question that I'm asking, Prof, it's on the basis that I am a former trade unionist. Having been in critical and very important meetings when you are restructuring entities, SOEs, and so forth and so forth. But it was a long time. I got fascinated by the analogy that Dr. Try, stated, to say at one of these utilities, a turnaround was agreed upon, visited a power station without a social plan. And obviously, without a social plan, huge ramifications, socially, from the workers and the extended, families that are supported by those workers. Now, the question that I have, Doc, because the same board members, you find them in different SOEs. Now, I'm imagining, that it is possible, that they do these turnarounds without any focus on attention on the social, labor plan that is supposed to be there from a governance point of view. Now, the question is, how pervasive, this situation is, from where you are sitting, such that from where we sit, we should know that some of the issues that are bedeviling the country, it is these, uncourageous, inhumane leaders that we have that are sitting in these boards that lead, to these calamities sometimes that we have. Hence, now we're complaining or crying of high unemployment and so forth and so forth. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Doc. Over to you, Dr. Try, and you can also give us your parting shot there or your closing remarks. And Professor Mdluli will then thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Prof, and thank you very much for that question, thought-provoking. Remember, in boards, you always need diversity. And then we always say you need diversity of skill, diversity of thought, diversity of age, diversity of race, diversity of experience, etc. Because with diversity, you look at things differently. So if you have the same people, same CAs in one room making decisions, we all look about it's the numbers. Numbers make sense, doesn't make sense. Yes, it's a profit. Yes, it's not a profit. No.
Business of business is business.
Yes, business is business. We say the end of the day is the IRR. I come from that world. What does the internal rate of return say? What is the payback? What is this? But you do that on a spreadsheet, all right? But then the importance of having the diversity helps you to bring you back. That is why you've got in the Companies Act, which is what I like, where it forces companies to have the social and ethics committees. And the social and ethics committees look into that. And the people that sit in the social and ethics committees, people who care about sustainability, humanity, when we were looking at the AI draft policy that is currently in place, one of the things is that boards needs to look at the human impact assessment of AI, meaning to what extent does it impact on the humanity in terms of the utilization of AI, which shows that now businesses are moving towards thinking holistically around all the stakeholders. And I learn a lot from those that are actually in the social and ethics committee of the boards, because they will tell about labor, about employees, the dignity, the things that we should all be worried about. But sometimes when you sit into these boards, all we care about is the numbers. So, and the biggest thing, that is why I like development finance. is that what is the impact in the community? How many jobs are we creating? How many jobs are we saving if we have to save an organization? And then how many families are we impacting? And those things, you combine them with finance, they actually become much more convincing, even when one present those items to the board. So I always advocate for diversity in the boards, so that we should not all think the same way. We must all think in a diverse that care for our community. And we're still a young democracy. We're still learning. We're still having more people that are coming to the boards. And that is why my consciousness is that the young people are the ones that are going to occupy those seats into those boards. They need to think differently. They mustn't think based on the spreadsheet. They mustn't think based on an AI model and make a decision on that. They need to think, walk the street, walk the communities, breathe the communities, and understand those communities. That will be my parting shot. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Doc. Thank you very much. My professor, over to you.
We say courage is the ability to balance presentation we got here today, which made... I'm still not audible, Prof.
No, it's breaking.
Prof.
It's breaking, my professor. You're breaking, my professor. So sorry about that. We really wanted to hear you because we hear only just the military, but it's fine. I think maybe let's just close, my professor. I know that where you are, you did say that your connection is not okay. Just on that one. But anyway, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. As our culture, if you can find one of the there's that icon there, react, any icon there that you can just press there just to show appreciation to Dr. Try for the informative and powerful presentation that we had. Can we all do it? Can we all do it? You can just press there, find something there where you can, yes, I can see the hearts, I can see the hands, and it's just, if we're in person, we'll be saying that, give us the round of applause. Unfortunately, we're online, so this is what we can show some appreciation to say that thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Dr. Try. Thanks a lot for once again for your humility. As I said, you're the most humble leader, and we're learning a lot from you. It was very, very impactful presentation, and a very, very instructive and informative, and very insightful. Thank you so much. We'll again call you back because we need these nuggets as leaders and academics, that always now and then we need to be reminded about them. So thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for everyone who joined us tonight, especially for those who joined us for the first time. Please do remember, we meet every Wednesday. Again, next week we'll be here, same place, same time, same login details, same everything, with another powerful speaker. So please, you are most welcome to attend again. Thank you so much. This session is adjourned now. May God bless you, and may God bless Africa. Nkosi sigelela Africa, our continent. Thank you and goodbye. Thank you very much.